I'd like to welcome you back to the Linguistic Landscape and Autoethnography of Place course. And we're going to continue our process of learning basic concepts that can help us to analyze the linguistic landscape and ultimately do a project about autoethnography of place. Today we're going to deal with, I think, one of the basic concepts in linguistic landscape research, and that is how ethnic and linguistic diversity is represented in the linguistic landscape. Another way of pointing this out is, and to build on what we did in our last lecture, I think it also points out something about the power relations between these groups. So some of the socio-linguistic and socio-ethnic diversity and how these groups are interacting. So let's start with the basic proposition. The linguistic landscape reflects the social, cultural, ethnic, and linguistic diversity and power relations within a given physical space. It's interesting that I think within the linguistic landscape we have a lens through which we can see things that perhaps might not even appear in more sociological types of research. You can see on the ground what is happening in quite an immediate fashion, and I'll try and prove this to you in just 1 second. So let's take a look here at Little Odessa, Brighton Beach. It's in Brooklyn, New York, and just look at the signs here in these two pictures. We're talking about a pharmacy, and it says pharmacy, but the large name of this pharmacy is written in Russian. And if you look below, you can see another example of this. Now, the question you need to ask yourself is, why on earth would you write something in Russian? I mean, there could be reasons, commercial reasons for this, and the most obvious commercial reason for this is that Russian language commercial signs means that there is a large Russian-speaking population in the area. Otherwise, why would you do it? In other words, remember that the aim of a commercial writer, someone who's putting signage on their shop, is to attract people in. So on a very simple level, if you have a language like Russian or any other language on a shop, the aim obviously is to bring in people who speak that language, and perhaps announce them that they can speak that language in the shop. And in pharmacy, that might be a delicate issue because you might want to explain a medical condition. But it also says Russian-speaking population is in this area. Let me show you another example. So in Pittsburgh, in the streets around Carnegie Mellon University, in a place called Forbes, which is a very well-known sort of area with lots of shops and restaurants. Just take a look at these signs. Chinese restaurant, Rose Tea Cafe, Taiwanese, Panda Supermarket, Cao Ka, Raymond Bar, Everyday Noodles, Tiger Sugar. And this is just a smattering of the Asian restaurants which are in this area. I think there are so many Asian restaurants on the street that one has to ask the question, why? Well, the answer is actually quite simple. There's a large number of Asian, Pan-Asian students who live in this area because they go to Carnegie Mellon University. So there's a large audience for this type of thing. So in this case, it's not so much the use of language, although in the Chinese sign and the Cao Ka sign, you do have the use, and Tiger Sugar, you do have the use of other languages and other scripts. I think it's more about the type of food and who you are serving and what you are providing for those students who might be homesick, who might have a desire for more cuisine which they recognize from home, and so on, things they enjoy. So once again, this points out something about the people who are living in this area. Now, signs are not just commercial. As we said, there are various different reasons for putting signs. A lot of people in the States, at least during election eras, put signs in their backyard. So if you see a lot of Harris Wall signs, they were both candidates for president and vice president, you assume that this is more of a Democratic area. If you have more Trump signs, this is from 2016, Trump-Pence signs, then you assume this is more of a Republican area. So basically, the number of signs in the number of different properties equals the strength of explicit support for that party of candidates. So basically, you could walk down an area and you would be able to see what type of political orientation a different place has. Now, if Trump signs disappeared or Democratic signs disappeared, you might reach the, and where they were there before, you might reach the conclusion that there's been a change in the power dynamics, how much they support these groups. Of course, during election times, you expect more signs. So, as you can see, it's a simple way of telling what's going on. You can also see something about official languages and how official languages work. So we've been looking at commercial signs and political signs, but look at this: welcome to Canada's capital region in English and in French. And of course, this says something about the recognition of two languages, both of which are official, both of which are part of the government, both of which give presence to these groups, these language groups, and their participation in the country, equal participation in this case. And then here we have it's very interesting in British Columbia legislature in Canada. There is a sign and it reads, "It's good that you settlers are one together with the Lekwungen people," and then it says in the native language. So you can see this is, while this is not equal participation like the previous sign, it is recognition of the land, it's recognition of the people who were there before, it's recognition of a connection. Now, does it go beyond that? Difficult to say, but at the very least there is public presentation. That's what's in the linguistic landscape of these groups and what these groups mean. Now, these are old signs. Now, as we all know, the Palestinian conflict is far, far more violent than what I'm going to talk about here. But in Israel, there was a law, I don't know if it's still there, to have trilingual signs. And we can see in the top one where it says Ben Yehuda Street, we can see this Hebrew first, Arabic second, English third. Notice how the Arabic script is much smaller. Notice how the Hebrew script is first. Notice how the English script is at the bottom. And I think this up front represents a series of relations between these language groups and what they mean. But then look at the two bottom signs where we have what I would call a sticker battle. So in the one on the left with the blue stickers, these are ultra right-wing stickers from ultra right-wing groups that have erased the Arabic because they want to erase the Arabic, a bit like we saw with the Trump government erasing signs. But then look on the right and you see an Arabic sticker that has been imposed where there was no Arabic on this sign. And let's look at one last example. Not all power relations are internal. Sometimes there's global issues. Up until recently, I think the English language and its connection to America and England, I think, had global prestige as an economic powerhouse. So this is a shopping area in downtown Beirut. And you can see a lot of the use of English, even when the words being described are Arabic words. But the idea is that English represents, prestige, value, high class, and so on. And once again, it's functioning as a way of inviting people in. I don't think these are representative that there's a large English-speaking population in downtown Beirut, but it is functioning to draw in a certain type of upper class public who speaks English and recognizes this as valuable. So I think I'll stop there, and I hope you get the idea how we can read some of the socio-linguistic, ethnic, and power relations in quite simply, I think, in the linguistic landscape, just by looking at what's around us and thinking quite a little bit about what does this say about the populations that are here, what does this say about the belief systems of the people who are here. And this, of course, builds on what we've already said about the discursive genealogy of any word, any message that appears in the public space. With that, I'll see you in our next lecture.